Hello, I'm going to give you my top 5 tips on being as sustainable as possible as a filmmaker and as a production company. And point 1, really simple, understand our carbon footprints. Using something like a carbon footprint calculator, we can get a sense of what our carbon footprint is, i.e. how many tons of carbon dioxide are we emitting through our operations every year, and also what part of what we do is the biggest culprit for that. For example, I've done this and I realized it was transport that was the biggest impact I was having. So then I thought, right, how can I take more public transport, and how can I, whenever there's a shooting day, get less cars on the road, all jump in the same vehicle when we need to with equipment to reduce that carbon footprint as much as possible. Point 2, and this is a fun one, is content. All we're doing is making content. So how can we get as many different sustainable behaviors, sustainable lifestyle choices, or just sustainable things in any way in front of the camera as part of our storyboards, as a documentary or as a drama? Which means, as viewers, when we watch content, we're seeing all these brilliant indicators of what a sustainable future could look like, which helps shape the conversation and influence positive behavior change whenever it can happen, which is really cool. Now, point 3 is coming on from this is don't judge yourself too hard, right? Thinking about sustainability, you'll get as many ideas as possible, but it's not always going to be something that's super achievable to do. And what I mean by this is, with the best role in the world, you could be doing everything you can. The society that we live in, the governments and businesses that we have are not doing enough to support the sustainable operations and features that we need. For example, if you're buying a camera, if you're moving around, if you're renting equipment and all that, there's so many overheads there that we have no control over that are still massively impacting the carbon impact of our footprints. So I would just say, whatever you're doing, get as far as you can, but don't judge yourself too hard when your footprint is still a little bit much, and understand that that's not your responsibility. There's a responsibility of other processes here that we need to address. Which brings me to my point 4, is use all that energy, take that and lobby, campaign, and try and change the industry for the better. If you're a filmmaker experiencing this, chances are there's 10 more that are experiencing that same thing. Why not get together and use your kind of leverage as filmmakers and production companies to say to, I don't know, an equipment supplier, say it's a camera and say, listen, I've worked this out and this camera is not as sustainable as it could be. I want to buy from you, but we need something better. Or why not go to the government and say, we need more sustainable infrastructure to help us with our operations. So, when you do reach those moments of you've got a lot of energy, but you're like, this is just not, I can't do anything and my hands are tied here, it's a great chance to use that energy to try and put the pressure on those higher up. But also understand that you're one person, you're one company, you're doing the best you can, and you're demonstrating what's possible, but there's still more to it. And finally, point 5, I would say set targets, right? That could be a target for you and your production company or your work as a filmmaker to be as low carbon as possible by a certain date. Now, a lot of the time we hear of things like net zero, which means there's more carbon dioxide being taken out of the atmosphere by a company than being put into it. However, that can often be kind of a false truth because they're saying they're doing that through tree planting, but then tree planting isn't really all it's cracked up to be in terms of an immediate solution to a company's carbon emissions, right? So there's a real zero target, that idea of this is absolute, just zero emissions that we have. But as we've said before, that is tricky because the world that we live in, the governments that we have, and the systems that we operate in themselves aren't going to be going completely net zero. So what I would say here, is there a target that your operations could set and you could work to that's to go as low carbon as possible, to take all the elements that you can control the carbon emissions of and say, right, we're going to be zero emissions on this by this date. And that might be, still mean that you have 5 tons of carbon dioxide a year that you're emitting from other factors that is the responsibility of others to take down. But then you can set a target to say, for everything I can control, this is going to be net zero or real zero in these points by 2025. And then it means you've got a target, you can set goals within that, and every step of the way, you know what you're trying to achieve with your own emissions. And then the more of us do that, the more pressure it puts on those higher up to try and shift the rest of the infrastructure to get there as well. So good luck, and whatever you do, try your best. We're all in this together, and I hope that your company and all of the different work we're doing together, we can kind of combine and share tips as well. We're all part of the same team, the same industry, so this is a really nice opportunity, I think, for a lot of people to collaborate. So good luck, and hope to hear some good sustainable work coming from us all soon.